Hello, my friends. Can you hear me? Please let me know if you can hear me. Just write down in the chat. Not sure if you can hear me. Okay, thank you very much, Natalia, for answering. I really appreciate that. Mm, so let's wait for a couple of minutes until we get more people joining us. Happy Friday for all of you out there. Happy Friday. How was your week? Was it a difficult week? Was it an easy week? Was it an stressful week? What would you say? How was your week, Natalia? I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that it was a good week. So today we're going to continue practicing with specific input, something that we have been talking about, and the importance of number one, knowing our English level, and number two, about enjoying working with that input. That's what is really important. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is food. Food is one of my favorite topics. Let's wait for a couple of minutes more, and then we're gonna go live. So make sure you have your notes ready to take notes. Make sure that you are like super mindful about this lesson because I know that you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, everything in just one single lesson, intermediate lesson, of course, as you decided. So let's wait for a minute and then we're going to start. We're going to get down to business, okay? All right, just a quick question. Can you see my screen? Let me know in the comments if you can see my screen. So can all of you? Hello, Alejandra. Can you hear me and can you see my screen? That's a very important part for this lesson and for like all of the lessons that we're gonna have. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you very much for your answer. All right. All right. So without further ado, let's just start. You know the drill. You know the drill. in terms of what we're gonna do, how we're gonna do it, and today we're gonna explore something from a linguist, um, which is his last name. I don't remember his last name. Stephen. Let me give you his full name. Let me give you his full name because that's an important theory about language acquisition. And today we're going to explore it a little bit more. So the theory is called I plus one. And I plus one, it means that the input that you are practicing with has to be one more level above your level. His last name was Krashen. That's the name of the linguist who says that when you're acquiring a second language, in this case, of course, is English. For instance, if you know that your that your level, sorry, that your level is beginner, you need to practice with something above, with something that is one level above beginner. And why is that important? Think about what we said before in terms of going to the gym. If you go to the gym and your aim is to build muscle, to have more muscular mass, if you do the same type of exercises over and over and over again, your muscles are going to stay the same. Your muscles are not going to change. But if you do different exercises, and most importantly, if you lift heavier weights, your muscles are gonna grow. So if you think about that in terms of language acquisition, a second language acquisition, it's kind of the same. If you have the ability to practice with a little bit more difficult input, you're going to learn more vocabulary. You're going to learn more grammar, more pronunciation. So, definitely, that's what every single one of you need to aim in terms of practice. Like, okay, my level is beginner. I'm just going to practice with beginner stuff, with beginner input. No. Of course, you need to practice with beginner input. Now, what you need to do is to practice with, let's say, pre-intermediate input. That's going to make a difference in your process, in your language acquisition process. So today, like you voted for what type of input you wanted to practice with. Um, Most of you said, okay, we want to practice with intermediate level. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's practice with intermediate. Now, I tweaked, I adjusted the level a little bit more to that theory of I plus one. Like your input is intermediate. Okay, we're gonna if this is intermediate, we're gonna practice with this kind of level. It's not super advanced, no. Now it's definitely not intermediate. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more than intermediate. So, without further ado, let's start, my friends. Let's start. You know the drill. You know the drill for sure. Um, as you're familiar with our previous practice, what I want you to do is just to listen to me. You got to listen to my pronunciation. And since you're able to see my screen, I want you to repeat after me. Just say the words, focus on the sounds. Remember that what's really important in English is to say the sounds, to produce, to emulate the sounds rather than focusing too much into grammar when you want to, communicate. Talking about speaking, because of course you can communicate when you're writing, but most of the times you're going to be talking. Talking is is the most important thing. Um, so let's start. Let's start. Are you ready? Are you ready, my friends? Because I am. I was looking forward to practicing with each one of you. Here we go. Here we go. Let's start. So listen to me, my friends. Mood food. We live in a stressful world, and a daily life can sometimes make us feel tired, stressed, or depressed. Go ahead. Fantastic. Great pronunciation. Great pronunciation, my friends. Now, um, before we break it down, before we explain what we just read, that little piece of what we just read, I want you to start thinking about something called connected speech. And the technical name is not important. What I want you to remember is the concept. And the concept simply is that each one of you need to be connecting the words when you're talking. When you talk, connecting the words is something very important. Like you don't say we live in a stressful world and daily life can sometimes, you see, that's not natural. What's really natural is that everything comes in one single sound. And how do you do that? Of course, practice it. I would say that's the only way you can achieve that. Only by practicing, only by doing it uh, a number of times, you can get to that level where you can connect the words and you say it in just one breath. You just say, we live in a stressful world and a daily life can sometimes make us feel tired. That's the kind of a spoken language that you want to achieve. And more if you are in an intermediate level, that's the goal. That's the sweet spot for sure. And remember, we're gonna analyze English from English. I mentioned this in our last lesson that a big mistake was to try to translate. Translating, it's a big no-no. Uh, when you wanna communicate in language, you need to understand the language from your objective language. And I'm gonna switch to Spanish now. Recuerden lo que les decía la última vez. Tenemos que entender el idioma desde el inglés, no intentar traducir. Uh, in this section right here, I want to highlight this part right here. These three words: tired, stressed, or depressed. Y fíjense cómo cada una de ellas viene de un verbo. For instance, stress, estresar, depress, deprimir, y como con la terminación ed, básicamente no las estamos utilizando como verbos en pasado, sino pasan a ser utilizadas como unos adjetivos, es decir, se convierten en adjetivos. And that's very useful in the English language. Something that I want to highlight as well is the title of the text, Mood Food. Mood is basically the way you feel, the way you feel in some specific situation. You can ask a person like, "Hey, how's your mood today?" Like if you start work and you ask your friend at work like, "Hey, what's your mood today?" You can answer like, I'm feeling great. I think today is going to be a great day. But if you're feeling in a not so good mood, in a bad mood, you can tell your friend like, I'm feeling like crap. I'm feeling like crap. That's the reality. That's your mood. So remember, your mood is the way you feel. And today we're talking about mood food. So the food that makes us feel in a certain way. All right, let's continue. So, class, remember, please repeat after me. Some people go to the doctor for help, others try alternative therapies, but the place to find a cure could be somewhere completely different, in the kitchen. Now it's your turn. There you go. There you go, my friends. You're doing great. You're doing really, really well. I like your pronunciation today. Have you been practicing? I bet you have. I bet you have been practicing. Something that I want to talk about in terms of pronunciation of this part is this type of words like therapy, therapies in plural. But most of the times when you have a word with th, you will pronounce it with your tongue between your teeth, like this, like therapy, and you release a little bit of air. This is this is not a sound in a Spanish language. This is not a sound in our language. So we need to practice because this is a natural sound in English. And of course, you need to be familiar to this sound to pronounce words like uh, thought, your thoughts, thought. Let me write it down for you here in the chat. Like a thought, when you're like saying, "Hey, I have a thought in my mind right now, and I'm thinking." That's another one with that sound pattern. When you think, you see? And my advice to you is that if this type of sounds are tricky, are a little bit difficult for you, you can exaggerate. Exaggerating is okay when you want to get familiar with the sounds, like this one. Therapies, therapies. Just make sure that you are producing the right sound. And next time when you hear a word that, follow the same type of sound pattern, you're able to produce the same type of sound. Okay. Um, so we have covered the first paragraph of this text, of this input that I have for you today. I'm not sure if maybe there's any question about this section, just this section right here. If you have a question, please write it down in in the chat. I would like to hear you, my friends. No questions? Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Dr. Paul Clayton, a food expert from Middlesex University, says the brain is affected by what you eat and drink, just like every other part of your body. It's your turn, class. Very well. Very well. Uh, and this section, I would like to mention just this part, like the pronunciation of affected. Affect. Affect is in the present. And because it's a regular verb, the way you are going to pronounce it in the past is affected. There's one more syllable. So I want you to repeat after me. Affected. Very well. Very well. Let's continue. Certain types of food contain substances that affect how you think and feel. Your turn, class. Good. Very, very good. Okay. I think is it's just fine, that part. I don't think that you have any question, or do you? Do you have a question? Write it down in the chat. If you have questions, just write them down in the chat, my friends, please. Let's move on. For example, food that is high in carbohydrates can make us feel more relaxed. It also makes us feel happy. Very well. And today I want to give you one tool to communicate. You know, sometimes in English and even in Spanish, we overuse the words or the phrases. En inglés y en español, a menudo sobreutilizamos las frases, sobreutilizamos las expresiones, las oraciones. This is one very good example, which is for example. That one, I have heard lots and lots of students and teachers overusing it. When you overuse something, it means that you use it way too much. Ese es el resultado de utilizar over con un verbo. Overuse. Lo sobreutilizas. Or like an overrated movie or TV show. Like, hey, people say that it is good, when in reality, it's not that good. It's just an overrated movie or overrated TV show. Overrated. And in this case, yeah, you can overuse this one, for example. And that is something that you don't want to do. That is something that is not intermediate level. That is not something that shows a very good mastery of English language. So you can use an alternative. You can use this one. I want you to remember this one. Repeat after me, class. For instance. That's correct. That's correct. And for instance, it's the same. It's the same as for example. Remember that a very good strategy at the time of learning languages is to use synonyms. When you use synonyms, you have more options when you want to communicate. And this is a great example. Okay, keep in mind the pronunciation of this one. Please repeat after me. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. And one more time, you got this ed pronunciation. Relaxed. Okay? So it is not relaxed. No. It is, one more time, relaxed. There you go. There you go. That's the way you say it. Okay, let's continue with this text. I think it's very interesting. What's your take on this type of text? When you want to hear someone else's opinion, of course you can say, hey, what's your opinion in this? You can also say, what's your take? on whatever. Like, what's your take on this text? What's your take on the political situation of the United States? What's your take on a healthy lifestyle? What's your take on the type of movies that are right now on the cinemas? You know, when you want to hear someone's opinion, what do you say? What's your take? So, my question to you, what's your take on this type of text? Do you find it interesting or do you find it boring? That is a very respectful opinion. If some of you say, hey, you know what, Eric, this is boring. This is extremely boring, and it's fine. Okay, let's continue. Research has shown that people on diets often begin to feel a little depressed after 2 weeks because they are eating fewer carbohydrates. Your turn. Very good. Very good. I love your pronunciation today. So, this is an interesting word. This is an interesting word because something that I mentioned in our last class was that English sometimes oversimplifies the use of certain words. And this is a great example. When you say research, you can mean two things. It can be a noun, puede ser un sustantivo, una cosa, en este caso, la investigación. But it can also be a verb, puede ser un verbo, puede ser investigar, researching. You can say, hey, this university is researching about the origin of the universe, for instance. Um, in this case, you are using it as a noun. En este caso, se está utilizando como un sustantivo. La investigación ha mostrado. Be careful. Esto es presente perfecto. Por ahora quiero que lo entiendan a partir de lo que está en esta frase. Puede ser que después hablemos de present perfect and the use and the auxiliary verb, but in this moment right now, I want you to understand this tense on that little sentence. Entiendan este tiempo verbal en esta frase. La investigación ha mostrado. Es decir, le estamos dando una relevancia al, a la acción que sucedió en el pasado, pero no nos importa cuándo. There's a very good example of a very common question that you can ask like anyone in English. That you can ask anyone in English, like this one. You can ask a person, have you ever been to the US? Have you ever been to the US? Or have you ever been to Europe? And this is a great example of the use of that tense. Este es un gran ejemplo de ese uso de este tiempo verbal, de presente perfecto, donde nos importa más la acción que sucedió en el pasado que cuándo. Cuando le preguntamos a alguien, have you ever been to Europe? Es que si alguna vez ha ido a Europa, no cuándo, no en qué momento del pasado. So remember that. Okay, so research has shown that people on diets often begin to feel a little depressed. De nuevo está esa pronunciación. Remember that one. Depressed after 2 weeks because they are eating fewer carbohydrates. Okay? So far, so good, my friends. Do you have any question? Please ask me. Use the chat. Please use the chat if you have some sort of question I would like you to ask me. I think there are no questions. Okay, fantastic. This is a very smart class. I love that. Okay, so next part, next section of this very interesting text. Here we go. On the other hand, food that is rich in protein makes us feel awake and focused. Great. I want to talk about this connector. This is a great linking word. So think of what we were talking about. Piensen por un momento de lo que veníamos hablando, de lo que nos muestra la investigación, de cómo esos carbohydrates, bueno, como algunas dietas, perdón, nos pueden hacer sentir depressed because we are eating carbohydrates. Es decir, el texto nos muestra una posición, una postura. Y después al utilizar este linking word, esta conjunción, este conector, on the other hand, ya nos da pie para pensar en que hay un contraste. There is something different. That is the way you learn how to use linking words, by using them. Así es como aprenden ustedes a utilizar linking words. Es a la manera en la que los están utilizando. So remember, there has to be some sort of idea. You don't have to just throw those linking words. No simplemente hay que utilizarlas or overuse them. Tiene que venir un hilo conductor. Debe venir una idea, como la que les acabo de mostrar. Y aquí en este caso, on the other hand, you just like make that contrast. Okay? Very well. Marelis, hello, Marelis. Hello, hello. I hope you're catching up with the rest of the class. I hope you're catching up, Marelis. Catch up is a phrasal verb. To catch up is a very important phrase in English language. Recuerden que utilizar phrasal verbs y más cuando estemos hablando es un indicativo, es un signo de que nuestro nivel de inglés es alto y es natural. When you catch up with a class or with a friend, you are at the same level. Okay? Like Marelis. Marelis arrived a little bit late to our lesson. You can catch up later by replaying this video. Ella se puede poner al día by replaying this video. Of course, it's going to be right there in my channel. So remember, you can catch up with friends. Let's suppose that you see a friend that you haven't seen in a long time. Ven a un amigo que no han visto en mucho tiempo. Like, hey, we have a lot to catch up. Repeat after me. We have a lot to catch up. Fantastic. Fantastic, my friends. These are you in Australia right now. This is your face in Australia. This is your face in the United States or in Europe, because you, my friends, you are mastering these phrasal verbs. Now you know how to use catch up. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of every single one of you. Ok, esto en cuanto al uso de este linking word, de este connector. Feel awake. Awake es un perdón, es un adjetivo. When you are awake, estás despierto. Estás despierto. Y se mantiene el uso de verbos que se transforman en adjetivos. Aquí hay otro ejemplo. Focused. Please repeat after me, class. Focused. There you go. There you go. Very well. Okay, I like that, Marelis. Yeah, you're catching up later. Uh-huh. That's the way, girl. Way to go, girl. Let's move on. Research has shown that school children who eat a high protein breakfast often do better at school than children whose breakfast is lower in protein. Your turn. Very well. Very well. So it's a little bit of more of the same. Es un poco de más de lo mismo en cuanto a lo que ya habíamos analizado. Research has shown. La investigación ha mostrado that school children who eat a high protein breakfast often do better at school than children whose breakfast whose you use it when you want to show possession. Lo utilizas para mostrar una, un sentido de posesión. Lo puedes utilizar en preguntas, like, hey, whose is this pen from? Whose is this pen from? Hey, it's Eric's. Whose is this computer from? When you want to know who is the owner, you ask questions with whose. Now, you can also use it as a connector. You can use it as a connector. Fíjense cómo lo utilizan aquí como conector. Estamos hablando del desayuno. ¿El desayuno de quién? De esos niños. De esos niños cuyo desayuno es más bajo, lower in protein. Protein. Let's continue. Also, eating the right kind of meal at lunchtime can make a difference if you have an exam in the afternoon or a business meeting where you need to make some quick decisions. Your turn. So far, so good, right? I think it's pretty understandable. Let's talk about the word right. The right. The right kind. Let's talk about right kind. Again, one of the big issues with English is that it oversimplifies the language. And the word right, of course, like this is my right hand. This is my right hand, sorry. Or when I ask you a question and you say the correct answer, well, in this case, I will tell you, you are right. You are right. So that's how you use it. You have a duality there. Tienes una dualidad. Puede ser la derecha o que estás en lo correcto. You are right. You are right. That's how you say it. That's how you say it. Okay? And the right kind, el tipo adecuado de comida, of meal. Meal. This is a very interesting word because when you use the word meal, you can talk about any meal. You can talk about the breakfast, you can talk about the lunch, you can talk about the dinner. Those are like on a day, there's people who have 3 meals, there's people who have just 2 meals, or there's people who have just 1 meal. 1 meal a day because they do fasting and stuff. We can talk about that later. Um, but definitely don't confuse it with food. Food is what you see on the plate. Like, hey, what is your favorite food? Oh, my favorite food is steak with potatoes and with salad and a glass of wine. That is my favorite food. But what is your favorite meal? Hey, I love dinner because it's the moment where I can be with my family. I can talk to my son. I can talk to my daughter. I can hear my wife. That is my favorite meal. Okay, so remember the difference. The food is what you see on the plate, on the dish. The meal is that part of the day where you eat, where you eat it. Okay, very important difference. Let's move on. Let's move on. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're here. In an experiment for a TV show, two chess players, both former champions, had different meals before playing each other. Your turn. Very good. Very good. Now, question, my friends. Do you know what is chess? Chess. And be careful with the pronunciation. It's a strong sound. You say chess. Chess. Yeah, it's that where you have the king, you have the tower, you have the bishop, you have the horse. You have, well, in English you don't call it the horse. Sorry about that. In English, you call it the knight. The knight, like in the Middle Ages, the knight. And it's that game. Yes, Alejandra. Very good. Very good, Alejandra. You're paying attention, girl. Good for you. Um, this part is very interesting. Both former champions. Former champions. It means that those two chess players, those two, they are not champions anymore. They were champions. They were chess champions. Uh, like, let's say that you're watching the news and they are talking to Bill Clinton about you know who's Bill Clinton, right? Bill Clinton, he was a US president. Anyway, back to my example. You watch the news and they are asking Bill Clinton about the Ukraine war. Very difficult topic right now. And right there on the screen there's some text that says Bill Clinton, former US president. It means that he was the president, but he's not anymore the president. Right now the president of the United States is Joe Biden. But Bill Clinton, he was the president. Um so the next time, if you have a if you if a person was your boyfriend or your girlfriend, well, you can tell me he was my former boyfriend, or she was my former girlfriend, and you will sound very classy. However, when it comes to boyfriend and girlfriend, you just say ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. But if you want to sound classy, you can say, hey, this guy, he was my former boyfriend. Okay. What else? What else? Okay, let's continue. Paul had a plate of prosciutto and salad, full of protein from the red meat, and his opponent, Terry, had pasta with creamy sauce, full of carbohydrates. Your turn. So far, so good, right? No problem there. Let's move on. In the chess match, Terry felt sleepy and took much longer than Paul to make decisions about what moves to make. The experiment was repeated several times with the same result. Go ahead, class. Great, great. Let's talk about this word right here, sleepy. When you're sleepy, you're like this. You're like, oh, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. I'm so sleepy. It's an adjective. It's a word that you're going to use to describe people. People, mainly people, like sleepy. And what's important about the word is how it comes from the word sleep. To sleep is a verb, but sleepy is an adjective. Keep that in mind. How you can make those transitions and you can turn words into something different. That's very interesting. What about this one? Several. Several is a synonym of many, many, many times. That's how you say it. When in this case is many, many times. Several times is many, many, many times. Or you can just use several to say that to mean a lot. Like I have several meals in a day. You see my example? I have several meals in a day. Yeah, how many? I have 8. Oh, that's a lot. Yeah, because I'm a bodybuilder. Wow. There you go. Okay, let's move on. Another powerful mood food could become a replacement for some medications doctors prescribe for stress. No problem there. In a study, Swiss researchers discovered that eating one dark chocolate candy bar, about 1.4 ounces, had beneficial effects on high stressed people. Your turn, my friends. There you go. And let's talk about this word right here, Swiss. Swiss researchers. Swiss is an adjective, is a nationality. It comes from Switzerland. Switzerland. Let me write it down in the chat. So, Switzerland is the country, Swiss is the nationality. Like, think about Roger Federer, the famous tennis player. He was a former champion. You see, he was a former champion. Um, he is Swiss and he was born in, you're right, Switzerland. Switzerland. Let's talk about the pronunciation of this word. This is a very interesting word because you don't pronounce this O. The O is silent. Do not pronounce the O here. You just say chocolate. Please repeat after me, class. Chocolate. One more time. Chocolate. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, my friends. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. Ya casi acabamos. Not only did eating the dark chocolate help reduce stress, It was also shown to improve mood and reduce high blood pressure. Go ahead. There you go. There you go. Fantastic. Fantastic. Great pronunciation. I would like you to write down any question that maybe you have from this part of the text. If there's any question, just please write it down. And there's like the ending of the text that I'm going to show you in just a minute. But again, if you have a question, just go ahead and write it down in the chat, my friends. Feel free to do it. Okay, I think there's no question right now. Let's move on to the last part of the text. Here we go. Why does chocolate make people less stressed? First, it causes the body to reduce the level of stress hormone cortisol. Your turn. Okay. I think it's very clear right there. Just make sure that whenever you're making a question, you make the right sound. Like when you're making questions, you end really high. Like in this case, why does chocolate make people less stressed? You see, it's high. And then when you are making affirmative or negative statements, you do something like this. You start low, you go high, and then you finish low. First, it causes the body to reduce the level of a stress hormone called cortisol. You see, you end low. Keep that in mind. Second, it reduces the fight or flight hormone, a hormone that makes people want to start a fight or run away when they are very stressed. Your turn. Okay. You start a fight. This is a very interesting phrase. And it's the way these words they go together. You don't begin a fight. You start a fight. You start a fight. On runaway, when you run away, this is another phrasal verb. When you run away, it means you escape. You escape. Now, I know English sometimes is a little bit crazy, but remember, it's also a piece of cake. When you run away of something, again, is when you escape. And it's more natural to say run away. There's a lot of songs, famous rock and roll songs that they are named like this, or they have a section in their songs that is run away, run away. So it's just to escape. Remember that one. Let's move on. In addition, it contains other compounds that lower blood pressure and improve your mood. These three things, along with its delicious taste, make chocolate a powerful mood changer. Go ahead. Very well. Very well. Here you have another very interesting connector, another linking word that of course you can use to add information. And again, it's all about the kind of flow that you have in your text or in whatever you want to say. It's not like, hey, in addition, whatever, whatever. No, you need to get to that part in which you need to put more information. And remember, it's in addition, in addition. And right here, this is a great example of TH pronunciation. I want every single one of you to repeat after me. These three things. Again, these three things. Y aquí se evidencia los dos tipos de sonidos que son posibles con TH. Puede ser uno que suelte aire como en things. You see, you gotta release air. Things. Y en otro donde lo más importante es la vibración. This. These three things. Lo más importante aquí también es que ustedes comiencen a identificarlos en un input definido. No busquen listas de palabras donde cuáles son los sonidos de TH, porque a las 2 horas se les van a olvidar. Más bien, si están viendo una película, si están viendo un video, si están escuchando un podcast or whatever the way you're practicing with your input, just make sure you're understanding and you're like relating those words and you're like, okay, I see that, I hear that pronunciation, and make sure you understand the whole idea. All right, let's finish the text. Mood food, what the experts say. Blueberries and cocoa can raise concentration levels for up to 5 hours. This is an interesting part. For up to. For up to. Es una expresión. Up to la tienen que interpretar como hasta. Hasta. Okay? Like when you practice English, I'm going to practice English up to 5 days a week. Voy a practicar inglés hasta 5 días a la semana. Up to 5 days or up to 7 days a week. That should be your goal, my friends. Food that is high in protein helps your brain to work more efficiently. Okay, efficiently, an adverb. Este es un adverbio. Estamos calificando la manera en que funciona, en que trabaja. The next one. For relaxation and to sleep better, eat carbohydrates. There you go. Carbohydrates. And the last part. Dark green vegetables, for example, cabbage and spinach, and oily fish, for example, salmon, eaten regularly can help to fight depression. There you go. There you go. Very good, my friends. Very, very good. Keep in mind the pronunciation of this type of fish. The L is silent. The L does not produce any sound. You just say, repeat after me, salmon. One more time, salmon. There you go. There you go. Now, your homework, my friends, is to rewatch this video and then you gotta read this text out loud. Tienen que volver a revisar este video, la información que ya hemos estudiado de este texto, de este intermediate level text. Y después tienen que leer en voz alta. Remember, focus in the sounds. What's important is the sounds. Lo importante son los sonidos, los sonidos. Like here, tired, stressed, or depressed. Or like right here when we were talking about the right kind of meal. And in this last section, when we were saying these three things, those are examples of important sounds that you need to produce. It's been a pleasure to practice with each one of you. If you have questions, if you have comments, please write them down here, or you can write directly to my Instagram page. Please feel free to interact with me. My name is Eric, and this is English with Eric. Thank you very much. Have a great night and enjoy your weekend, my friends. See you next week.